Hello to all you poker players out there, and welcome back to the nerdy and nitty gritty side of poker and pot Limit Omaha. I have played 3 days since last time I made a video, but I haven't had time to make a video about it. But it's coming now. I played 2,615 hands. I won $18. Should have lost 82. The average all-in equity is 61. So that's nice. If we just take a look at like these sessions here, like it was like 28th, I was ended up here. So this session here was a little bit crazy. If you see, yeah, it goes down to a minus and 115, and then I end up in 10 in very short, like in 50 hands. I won 5 big buy-ins or something like that. But nevertheless, a couple of $100 swing, 8 buy-in swing is pretty normal in pot Limit Omaha. Today I want to talk a little bit about the average all-in equity and EV, and what this number actually means, because I mention it all the time. And I've also mentioned in a video earlier that you can't really measure how lucky you are, how good you are, something like that in just looking at this number, at least in a short sample like this. But I want to go a little bit more in depth about what this number actually means. So if we go back here to the results and look at it by stake, and we look at here in the basic, then we can see I have put in these 4 numbers here. The average all-in pre-flop equity, the average flop equity, and the average turn equity, and the average river equity. And these 4 numbers convert into this number here. If we click here, then we can see the description, the formula: pre-flop equity plus flop equity plus turn equity plus river equity, divided by the number of the times the player was all in, plus number of time player was all in pre-flop, plus the number of time the player was all in on the flop, and on the turn, and on the river. So that's how these 4 numbers work into this number. And how does this number then work into the average all-in adjusted? Because you would believe that when this number is so high, then this number should be positive, but that can be explained somehow. But let's just take a look at what this number actually means. We take a look at it here. Amount of money won in the preferred currency set in PokerTracker when adjusting all-in pots. In those pots, instead of attributing real results, this statistic attributes to the player the equity they had in the pot at the time of the all-in. Pots where players call the all-in bet or raise but later fold, hence their cards are not known, are not adjusted. So what PokerTracker did many years ago, they took EV out of PokerTracker and made the all-in adjusted instead. If you want to listen a little bit more about it, then one of those people who make PokerTracker, in 2013 he was at the Jared Tendler podcast, and here he discusses the truth about all-in EV and luck and so much more. The EV of a hand, for example, let's say that you have a hand that's called ace, king, queen, and if we try and put that into the preflop helper, and you put it in the cutoff. The preflop helper is a tool that's provided by Jane Anders and the Mastermind, and I shall leave the link in the description below. But let's say you have ace, king, king, queen double suited in the cutoff. So um, you raise first in, but if the button goes ahead and free bets you, then you can actually 4-bet this hand and have an expected value of 2.6 big blind per hand you do that. So let's then say you go into the worst case scenario. You have this ace, king, king, queen double suited, and your opponent on the button actually shows up with ace, ace, king, jack, where he covers your one of your suits. He block one of your outs, for example, and then you run the equity. Then you will only have 22% equity. So let's say you play PLO 100, then and all the money goes in pre-flop, because if you 4-bet, then you obviously call it off, because the button will not show up with these kinds of hands very often. The button should 3-bet versus the cutoff 8% of the time, which means that he will show up with a bunch of unpaired hands, single suited, double suited here, but of course also a bunch of one pair hand with aces. So you will not show up with a monster like that very often, but it can happen. That if that was the only hand you played in Poker Tracker, it will tell you that you should your average all-in adjusted would be minus $77, because that would be you will only have 22% equity in that pot. So that's kind of the difference between the EV and the average all-in adjusted. But sometimes when you have this high of an average all-in equity percentage, but you should have been losing money, then these numbers in the long run, they will probably even out, but hands can be played weird sometimes. And the reason why I want to go a little bit into this number today is because I actually came across a couple of free hands where it kind of highlights how skewed these numbers can be. So I'm not in this hand here, but if we take a look at this hand, so this guy up here opens up with 7-6-6-5 single suited, which he shall not open. This guy free bets a hand that he should not free bet, Jack 10-9-8 single suited. Button folds, I fold, big blind folds, and he calls. So here on the flop, this guy flops a monster. He has top pair and a wrap. This guy has a pair of sevens. So he goes and check. This guy goes and bet, and he calls. Here on the turn, he actually pick up a bunch of equity. He has a gut shot and a flush draw now, and he checks. This guy goes ahead and pots it, and he calls, and now he only have 3 big blinds left, right? So here on the turn he has 38% equity. The river bricks, he checks, and this guy kind of turns his hand into a bluff, but he bets and he calls it off with a pair of sevens, where with 0% equity here on the river. So this guy, if that's the only hand he play in Poker Tracker, he will have a 0% equity, and this guy will have 100% equity. But if this guy, instead of he check and then this guy bets, if he jams here on the turn, then in Poker Tracker it would say he had 38% equity. So that's one hand that's kind of can be played weird and will show kind of weird up in Poker Tracker. Another hand here is this guy min raises. This guy free bets with ace 8-7-6 double suited, which is quite standard. I go ahead and cold 4-bet. I have played 2 free hands with this guy. He has been free betting 1 or 2 times, so double suited clean rundown like this is a premium, and I wouldn't mind to play for 100 big blinds pre-flop. Um, this poor soul with 17 big blinds have bad aces, has to call. This guy folds, and this guy go ahead and call. Here on the flop, I flop a monster with a pair and a wrap and a flush draw. So I go ahead and pot. Uh, and I have now 9 big blinds left, and he calls. So here on the turn, he is drawing dead, and I bet, and he calls it off. So again on the turn, like his average all in equity, if that it was the only hand he played in Poker Tracker, he would say it was 0. But instead, if he jams the flop, now he doesn't have a whole lot of equity. But it will still say that he had 8% equity. So kind of same concept here. So the thing is then that I played a hand myself that I played a way in a kind of in a similar fashion, but with much bigger bets behind. But I flag call a hand I shall not flag call here, so I make a mistake pre-flop. This guy opens and this guy folds, and I like to flat here. This guy has single suited aces. He goes and squeezes. This guy folds. I cannot fold a hand like this. The thing about the equity for a hand like this is it realizes its equity very well against this type of range in the big blind, the squeezing range in the big blinds, which is also aces this time, but it will also very often be aces. So small blind goes ahead and call also. So I flop here a pair and a wrap. Very big flop for me, but small blind checks, and this guy comes out and pots it. So at this point of time, I kind of know what his hand is. I know it's an overpair with a flush draw, but I don't think I can fold here. I need 33% equity to call, and but I cannot jam here. We come to the flop here with a stack to pot ratio of basically 2, but I have no fold equity here, so I'm not gonna jam. So I just go ahead and call. If this guy jams, then I have to go in with this hand, but he folds, and as long as I don't see a heart here on the turn, then I call it off. And there's a black queen, so opponent goes ahead and jams the turn, and I need 21% equity to call, and I do go ahead and call. So it's much bigger bets that's behind, but I kind of play it in a little bit of the same fashion, that if I see a heart on the turn, then I'm out, but as I don't do that, then I am gonna call it off, because I'm pretty sure that my 2 pair would be out, be good too in this spot, and I'm lucky enough to river a straight and win the pot. But yeah, equity and average all in equity, average all in adjusted, and EV is not the same, and they can jump around like these numbers a little bit, but hopefully in the long run, when we're done with 100,000 hands, then these numbers will be more equal. But that was it for now, and I wish you all the best of luck in life.